Hi everyone and welcome to part 8. So today I'll be talking to you about food and beauty. We'll be covering hair, skin, and nails. And this video is applicable to both men and women, but of course women might find this a bit more useful because I go into details. In Chinese medicine, the skin is linked to the spleen, the liver, and the lungs. So these organs must be healthy in order for you to have healthy skin. And if you also have a weak qi, that means the energy moving through your body is weak and the yin is not very nourishing. So if there's a yin deficiency, then you will find dryness issues is specific. And we'll look at these in a bit. But the main thing to know is that the skin is affected by a wrong diet, which means eating wrong for your constitution. Also climate, especially harsh climate, like too much sun, wind, or cold, or humidity. And lastly, by stress. So stress can be overworking or just emotional stress. But from a point of view of psychosomatics, the skin is also the boundary between the inner world and the outer world. So anything that's happening inside will be reflected on the outside. And this is a good thing because it gives us a cue, it's a signal for us to change something in our lifestyle. And as always, I like to remind you to first remove the toxin. So remove what is causing the problem before you apply the cure. And as I said earlier, the yin nourishes the skin. So the yin includes your blood. So it includes your blood health, making sure that you don't have any deficiencies, making sure that there is enough nourishment coming from within. Of course, it also helps to have good circulation, enough oxygen, so proper breathing, healthy lungs, and those are directly related to skin issues. Of course, we'll look further and see that there are more issues that you could be having with the skin that are linked to your liver. But in general, just being hydrated and well fed will lead to happy skin. And if you have issues with dryness, then of course it helps to eat well and to hydrate, but you can also use some external help and use some natural oils as a lotion and avoid anything that irritates the skin. Now, when the skin gets angry, it gets red, hot, and itchy. This is typically an excess yang or empty heat or yin deficiency, and it has many roots. So the first root, as we said, it could be sensitivity. So technically, it's a spleen issue because your spleen is having a problem dealing with something external. And it's not transforming it properly. And so what we have here is like a detox system that is just saturated. So it's really important to strengthen the spleen and to avoid anything that will be in like all the excesses that we know that are bad for the spleen, including really cold foods or really heating foods or very heavy fatty foods. And we'll need to cool down with yin foods and herbs. So some amazing herbs are chamomile, chrysanthemum, and licorice root. These are all easily available. You can also make a very strong flower tea and then put that tea in the bath and soak in it for a while. It's also very soothing. Of course, you will need to hydrate, drinking lots of water, soups, some juices, moisturize with natural things that we'll talk about in a bit, and protect from harsh climate, especially from wind and cold. So this is something that has to do with liver heat that we're not getting into, but you could research that if this is the condition that you have. And so in general, we want to keep the food, neutral, hydrating, but there could also be an emotional undertone to this. So there could be something that's really irritating us that we are not talking about, we're not expressing, and it manifests on the skin. And this is something that I always notice with clients is that whenever there is something itching them on the skin, there is usually something itching them in their emotions, something unresolved with the people around them. So it's always a good idea to look inside and see what's going on there. So that's it for the body skin, but what about the skin on our face? Our skin is our interface between us and the rest of the world. It's our image. So if you have any difficulties with a new identity, it could be for example, being in a new school, being in a new workplace, or even being with a new partner, or actually even after a breakup. you can have issues readjusting to this new identity, and it tends to manifest on our skin because this is where we have issues communicating with others or getting close to others. It's a very interesting psychosomatic term. I personally like to get in detail more when I have a one-on-one with people about this because there's a lot of questions that can be asked. But in general, I just want you to know that when it comes to the face, it's not just the food. It can also really be emotions, especially emotions like shame and anger. So there are two main types of acne. We have damp acne and damp heat acne. For damp acne, you will notice bumps and blackheads. So typically there's no redness, but there's just a few, like this bumpy skin, like you can see on the picture here. And this is caused by excess sugar, ice cream, nut butters, or very raw and cold foods. So this is particularly for those who have maybe a Qi deficiency or they're a cold type, and so they're making their spleen weaker by eating the things that are just too cold for the system, and also too fatty. So it's important to clean the spleen, eat warm foods, eat bitter foods, and cut down on these cold foods and find alternatives for them. As for the damp heat type, it's mostly red bumps and pimples. It's caused by an excess of fried foods, spicy foods, damp fatty foods. In my case, it's peanuts. There could also be issues with dairy, especially if dairy is heated at a high temperature, like fried cheese, as opposed to a few slices of like fresh cheese in your salad. Very, very different reaction. If you remember our talk about cooking methods, this one is huge when it comes to acne. So in general, you want to turn down the heat if you have these issues. Maybe cut down on red meat, cut down on spicy food, cut down on the extremes. You want to add cooling foods, but of course nothing ice cold, but maybe some fruits, some vegetables, cooked vegetables or raw, depends on the constitution. Also add some bitter foods, so leafy greens are amazing. And another thing is you might want to also take a look at the air you're breathing, because if you're in a polluted space, then already your lungs and your liver are working hard to filter all the toxins from the system. So this could be another factor. And lastly, to look at the emotions behind it, it could also just be triggered by anger. So ask yourself, what's boiling inside? Now, some of you might relate to this. We sometimes, after having an acne flare-up, we might notice that the skin is very slow to heal. And it's kind of frustrating because the acne, so to speak, is not there, but the marks are still there. And this is typically a blood and or qi stagnation. So remember, for this constitution, you want to keep a neutral diet. You want to have warm foods. You want to really build up the spleen and build up the blood. So avoid anything that is processed or heavy or spicy or cold or damp. But you also want to avoid anything that is unnatural. So keep your blood as clean as you can. However, that being said, red wine is actually welcome because red wine stimulates blood flow, and in small amounts, just very little, maybe a glass a day, but this could be helpful. And of course, you want to strengthen the blood, so you want to eat properly, lots of protein, lots of leafy greens, lots of vitamin C, and make sure you're getting enough zinc. Now, everything on the market is out there to make you think that there's a magical solution, that if you buy this product, you will have all your problems disappear. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they work, but they actually cause harm on the long term. And so what I need you to know is that the skin heals from the inside, and sometimes, yes, things from the outside can help, but the skin is mostly a reflection of what's happening inside. So creams and acne soaps might provide some relief after the flare-up, but it will not prevent it, and it will never make up for a bad diet. And by bad diet, I mean something damp, or damp heat on the long run, or even insufficient. So if your blood is weak, then you will have skin problems. Now, for acne medication, there are some things that are very powerful, and yes, they work. They make your spots disappear, they make your skin look smooth, but they excessively dry you up from the inside. They dry everything. It's not only targeted on the skin. So it could lead to organ failure, it can lead to depression, and even suicidal thoughts. So be extremely careful if you're on any medication, please open the box, read the inserts, and take it seriously because it's very, very, very potent. So if you want to save your skin, there are some natural moisturizers that you can use instead of lotions. You can use jojoba, olive, almond, neem, hemp seed, grapeseed, argan oil, or even coconut and avocado oil. These oils clean and protect and nourish your skin. So they clean by dissolving the dirt on your skin. They protect by being a very thin layer that kind of isolates your skin from any outside harsh factors. And they also nourish the skin. They help build the lipid portion of your cells. Of course, everyone has a different skin type. Everyone will need a different oil. You just have to kind of trial and error is the only way to know which oils work best for you. Just make sure to only apply a thin layer because too much can clog pores. And if the idea of oil kind of turns you off and you don't want to have a oily or shiny skin, totally understandable. You can also use aloe vera instead. It really helps to hold the moisture in, and it also has salicylic acid, so it helps prevent breakouts. If you are happy with these options, you have the option to either use them in the morning or at night. Depends on what you feel more comfortable with. But in general, if you apply them by day, they also provide mild sun protection and will protect your skin from pollution. Other remedies that I've tried and tested are for red boils. You can just simply cool and heat the affected area. So the way I do this is I would have 2 spoons, a spoon that I keep in boiling water and another one in the freezer. And you can alternate by applying 30 seconds of each. This helps the blood move a bit faster and it helps the process kind of like reach a final point a bit sooner instead of waiting with an angry red bump on your face. It can be really frustrating, I know. As for pimples, you can apply a mix of lemon and starch. So just any lemon juice, and you put starch enough to have a paste so that you can apply on your face. That works wonders at drying it out and also kind of saves time. Now, if you have blackheads and large pores and you want to tighten them, you can apply freshly squeezed lemon juice on your face. It works wonders, especially if you do this like several days in a row. It's going to like sting a little bit, but then you will feel that you have smaller pores and a general more glowing face. If you have oily skin and you want to use a toner just to kind of feel a bit fresher and cleaner, you can dilute apple cider vinegar in water, or you can use water and add a few drops of either tea tree oil or peppermint oil. Moving on to nails, nail health is directly related to the liver. So a happy, healthy liver will give you pink and shiny, lustrous nails. If you have a liver blood deficiency, then instead you might have pale, dry, cracked, or brittle nails. If you have a blood stasis, then you might have a purple or darkish appearance on your nails. So we've seen these constitution issues before. We've looked at the foods that help. In general, you want to eat slightly neutral and a lot of leafy greens, a lot of protein, and you will need grains to have a healthy blood because these are all blood building food. So when I say protein, it doesn't necessarily mean animal protein, but know that animal protein is a superior protein and it will be translated into your system much faster than when you eat plants. Of course, this is a personal choice and there are ways to be a healthy vegan or vegetarian, but just be very careful. If you start having these symptoms, you need to take care of yourself more. So a poor diet is one thing. Now, of course, you can also be stressed, whether it's overwork or too much work, like exercise, or emotional stress, and this will affect the liver, as well as having a lot of blood loss. So it could be either from an injury or it could be from very heavy periods. And so if this is you, then make sure that you are eating enough to make up for the loss. Also, I want to tell you to be careful with nail polish. Avoid nail polish. Most of them are toxic. Even the ones that are clean still do have toxic ingredients. And this is something you really want to avoid, especially if you have poor nail health. So try to instead maybe put some natural oil on your nails to give it some shine and let your nails breathe, because the cells under your nails need to breathe pure air, not toxic, like solvent-based gases that come out of the nail polish. these are really, really detrimental to you, especially if you already have a weak system. When it comes to your hair's health is related to your blood, your liver, and your kidneys. So the blood provides the nourishment for the hair, the liver provides the quality and the quantity of the blood, and the kidney supports the yin function. And so having all of these on point will give you shiny, glossy, healthy hair. Any obstruction there or weakened system will give you weaker hair. Now, it's important to know your porosity so that you can take care of your hair better. You might have high porosity or low porosity. If it's medium, then there's nothing to be careful about. But if you have an extreme porosity, then you will need to look into that more. Trust me, it makes a huge difference when you know the do's and don'ts for your porosity. Now, if you have a liver blood deficiency, this will cause dull, brittle, dry hair. And the cure for this is to really increase your protein. So I really can't say this enough, but protein really goes a long way, as well as any blood building foods. So carbs are your friends. If you're having early graying, thinning, or hair loss, there could be many causes, but it's mostly due to dampness and or deficiency. So you will really want to look into that. Of course, having an emotional shock or any kind of trauma will cause hair loss, especially within 2 to 3 months. So nothing to really worry about if you can't pinpoint like an exact moment. But if it's something that's kind of been ongoing and you don't know what to trace it to, then take a good look at your diet and correct your constitution. Now, the kidneys are responsible for healthy hair, and so if you eat more organ meats, dark fruits like berries and dates, walnuts, black sesame, broth, and seaweed, you will see an amazing improvement in your hair over time. You will also want to massage your scalp daily just because it helps the blood flow, it helps the energy flow, and it gives nourishment to your hair follicles, and it also feels great. So do this every day, and hopefully you will see great results very soon. One specific issue I wanted to bring up is dandruff because it seems to be quite common, and there are 2 different kinds of dandruff, unlike most people will think there's only one, but there are actually 2. So the first one is damp heat. With damp heat, you will have an itchy and or oily scalp. There is going to be a yeast overgrowth, so the white stuff that you see is actually a yeast. In this case, you'll need to correct your diet, eat more neutral, eat more yin, obviously more cold, less hot. You should know this by now. You can also apply apple cider vinegar or rose water to your scalp after a shower. You can also apply eucalyptus or tea tree oil as a treatment. It will help you feel really fresh and it will kill the yeast. The second option is if you have yin deficiency. So in this case, there's no oiliness. It's only a dry, flaky scalp. And the white stuff that you see is just dry skin. So in this case, you should eat more yin. You can apply aloe vera or rose water. They're very calming. And you can also take care of the products you're using. So make sure that sodium chloride is never the first 5 or 6 ingredients in your product ingredients list. It should be towards the very end, which means that there's very little of it or not at all, because this really dries out your scalp over time. So it can cause itchiness and it's just very annoying to have. So make sure that your products are clean. So the products that I would recommend for you are a charcoal mask, like the one in the picture here. It really cleanses the pores really well. It makes you feel amazing afterwards. Just make sure it's hypoallergenic. That means that there's nothing that can cause an irritation or allergic reaction, and it will say on the packaging. The next one is aloe vera gel, especially if it's 98 or 99%. That means that it has mostly plants and just a little bit of alcohol to preserve it. And this is a really good one for dry skin and also for hair. Now, for cleaning the face and the hands, I recommend an organic local soap. So the more like primitive soaps, which are made from olive oil or things like honey, goat milk, etc., even camel milk. You can find some really nice ones, and usually different parts of the country and different parts of the world obviously will have different ones, so it's nice to explore what's there. As for hair, if you have dry hair, I recommend a moisture lock-in leave-in conditioner. It makes a world of a difference, especially in polluted places. If you want to grow your hair and you're struggling, then as I said before, make sure your diet is on point, but you can also supplement with hair growth oils, especially those that contain rosemary or garlic. And then when it comes to washing your hair, so sulfates have kind of a bad rep, but they're not that bad. And sometimes you even have products that are marketed as sulfate free, so you would assume that they're healthier, but they actually use other chemicals that aren't sulfates but that have the same effect. So it's a bit tricky. You might have to do some trial and error here to find the products that work for you. But in general, what I recommend is to use a sulfate-free shampoo and conditioner for the majority of the time, like maybe every other day. And then once or twice a month, you can use a mild sulfate shampoo so that it cleanses you really well and really gets your scalp super clean. And what I like to do is I like to shop for the kids shampoo because anything made for kids is usually hypoallergenic. It's much milder and it's less harsh. So it's definitely a go-to.